All right, everyone, it's time to talk about polling, specifically with regards to Trump's approval. This is an important thing, an admonition to all of you. Stop trying to tell me what the poll results are based on one or two polls. Please do not insist that you are right if you are using one number and I'm using an aggregate. I will beat you every single time in my predictions. Here's why. People are trying to tell me Trump has 52% approval right now. What are they basing this on? A Rasmussen poll. Rasmussen has systemically overestimated Trump's support level by a significant margin for years. The fact that they were right in 2016 was a function of turnout. But in the midterms, they got blown out of the water. YouGov is the closest thing to a perfect single poll. They've got him at 43 right now. That's about on line with the aggregate. But here's the big thing. The most recent poll being Rasmussen. I haven't checked this morning again because I'm out here, but we'll see what happens. His approval has risen. In the wake of the State of the Union, which was a brilliant tactical move, by the way, in the wake of this competing rally with Beto that makes him look really good, way better than the Democrats, in the wake of Ilhan Omar, in the wake of the Virginia scandals, the Democrats have taken a hell of a beating over the last couple of weeks. Trump, meanwhile, has had a series of considerable successes. North Korea, he's going to have another meeting with Kim Jong-un. The announcement was big news. When it happens, his approval will probably rise a couple more points. He could be riding on 45 right now. But it takes a good week for the polls to catch up because you got to wait for the other polling firms. But saying, well, Rasmussen says it's 52, so it's 52. No, that's not what it means. That's the same as if you say, well, the CNN poll that just came out shows him at 30%, so his approval is 30. No, it's not. And you look at the aggregate. The aggregate says 42, 43. That's about where it is. And it's on the rise. It's certainly not going down or stagnating at the moment. He'll probably go to about where he was before, which is like 44.5%, maybe 45. That, by the way, is number one, survivable. Number two, comparable with where Obama was at the same time. Number three represents a slight rise above what had been a long-term ceiling on his support of around 43%. The fact that he would go above that by a couple points, if that's indeed the case, which I speculate it is when you see this new polling, that's a sign that there is a switch among certain centrist voters towards the Trump camp. I'll tell you why I think this is happening. The Democrats have made a series of bad blunders. They don't have a centrist candidate, that's number one. They've got Klobuchar, who's criticized as being a Republican with a D after her name, and Tulsi Gabbard, who's nuts. The rest of them are all a bunch of far leftists. Most of them are by any reasonable standard, we would deem them to be socialistic. The funny thing is, they're not helping their cause because they're embracing literal socialism under AOC and people like that. The Democrats are having hard times. They're riddled with scandals. They have no clear leader. But they do have a face for Donald Trump to use as a punching bag, which is Elizabeth Warren. Oh, yeah, the only candidate in their field currently running that has any real name presence other than Kamala. And Kamala Harris, trust me, is way worse than Elizabeth Warren. So Trump is being compared to them. See, before the campaign heats up, every president has this problem. If there's no active campaign at the time, you're just being compared to a generic blankness. It's basically if you do something wrong, people are likely to disapprove of you. But what if there's another party to compare yourself to? What if there are other individuals, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, whatever, to compare yourselves towards? He's trying to get the American people to compare himself to Pelosi and Alexandria Cortez and Elizabeth Warren and the embarrassments of the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, the centrists in the Democratic Party, the neoliberals, not really centrists, there's no such thing. There's no moderate Democrats, there's no moderate Republicans. Moderate is an illusion. There's no such thing. It just depends on what this current zeitgeist is. If you fall in line within the Overton window, you're considered a moderate. You're a moderate Nazi because the Nazis happen to be in charge. You're a moderate communist because, you only want some communalism. Yeah, that would pass for a moderate at the time, wouldn't it? Yeah, I'm a commie, says someone back in the Stalin era, but I think that people should have at least a few potatoes to themselves. Like, some private property is okay. Okay, you're a moderate communist, I guess. See how that works? Trump's approval is rising because he's finally got other people to be compared to. This was the Kasich Effect. We saw this in 2016. Kasich, nobody knew damn fucking anything about him. Nobody knew anything about Kasich. They didn't know his platform. He barely talked at the debates, which was funny. Carson also complaining about that at one point. And so nobody knew anything about him. So when they said, well, he wins against Hillary Clinton, yes, it's because they're comparing her to generic Republican, and she's not well liked. If once you knew more about the candidate, they suffered a detriment from that because some of them were honestly nuts, like fucking Ted Cruz or Little Marco. Trump conceived of as nuts, but ended up winning anyway, which is hilarious, and he'll probably win again at this rate. His approval is rising, but it's not 52%. Especially, please do not just use Rasmussen. You will be let down 100 times out of 100. It's like when the liberals say, well, Trump's approval has cratered to 35%. CNN told me so. Yes, I'm sure. I would rather trust that one polling firm, because we all know how unbiased and great CNN is and how great at their political predicting they are. I would rather trust that than trust a wide aggregate of dozens of polling firms taken over the course of several weeks, giving me an aggregate, a sort of shotgun pattern, and I can sort of find the middle. I would much rather just rely on that one poll. It makes total sense to me. See, the problem is when people do that, they tend to be wrong with their predictions. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here chuckling because I'm looking at the actual aggregated number. He's on the mend. He's definitely, he had fallen down to about 40, 41. He's on his way up. He's past 42. He's probably at 45 right now, which is pretty good. Again, comparable to Obama at the same point in his first term. Certainly survivable, especially, you've got to understand, Obama was running against, he survived with slightly higher than that in approval. I think he was at 47 on election day, if I remember correctly. He managed to do fairly well against Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, all things considered, was at least a halfway competent candidate. I thought he was cringy, but he was halfway competent. Look at the Democratic field. Do you think any of them are even halfway competent? Cory Booker coming out the other... What the fuck did Cory Booker say the other day? He's just say, well, we want to put a huge tax on meat to convert people to vegetarianism. Yes, I am sure that every red-blooded centrist American is going to vote for you. Dude, most of the Democrats aren't vegetarian. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? As long as the Democrats ramble about climate change, Trump barely even has to campaign. You just say, well, look, I'm going to let the Democrats... You know what Trump should do? His next campaign ad should just be slices of other Democrats, the Democrats speaking. You shouldn't even say anything. Don't have a slogan, don't make a speech. And the next time you hold a rally, just put up a bunch of YouTube videos of these people making mistakes. It'll be far more effective. It would also be novel. I don't know if anyone's done that before, and novel things are very good within political campaigns. Little bit of advice for the Trump people, get that message to him. Just trust me, get a 20-minute reel of all of those people saying dumb shit and doing dumb things. Trump shoots ahead. It'd be really funny because he'll be compared to that. He'll be compared to knock them down a peg, kneecap them because they deserve it. The Democrats right now are so fucked up that they actually, yeah, they deserve to lose. Absolutely. That's about all. Peace out.